Alright, so greetings from Pennsylvania once again, and we're going to do another one of our French and Indian War series videos here today. Today is April 19th, I believe. Beautiful Monday afternoon. So I'm currently parked right next to Route 183. Just over on the other side of 183 was where Fort Detrick Snyder was. We did that in my last video. So I left the one channel sticker out that way, and of course that channel sticker was found. I did share that in my previous video. I think my most recent Appalachian Trail video, I shared that picture of the person who found that sticker. So I'm back in the same area, and now we're going to continue our little series continuing east along this mountain ridge. And of course this mountain ridge is the Blue Mountain, and as I mentioned in all the previous videos, this was in a lot of ways the frontier between the British settlers and Indian territory off to the west, or what the French also claimed was their territory as well, and it was just mostly what led to the French and Indian War. Conflict of interest as to who owned that land in western, what's often referred to as Ohio River Valley. Yeah, I wish I would have picked maybe a slightly quieter spot to film. It's kind of quiet now, but there's a lot of traffic, a lot of trucks going down this highway. But anyway, I was just kind of looking for a spot to do the intro. So the goal for today, this afternoon, is to hit 3 different fort sites. 2 were commissioned forts. One was more of just a blockade house set up by the settlers. And then we'll stop at one location too to tell a story. I always like to include at least a story or two along with the different sites that we visit. So we're going to hit up Fort Lebanon, which was later renamed Fort William, so that could get kind of confusing in the history. And then we're going to stop at Hawk Mountain, tell a little story. And then we're going to go to Fort Franklin, which is named after Benjamin Franklin. That's the first of what's referred to as the Franklin Forts. That one is called the Franklin Forts. There's some others that were built under his direction. And then we're going to stop at a place called Fort Everett, which wasn't a commissioned fort, but it was as a site we're going to check out anyway. Not much to see there. So we're going to go on in a minute. I might talk to you a little bit more about Fort Lebanon here, because I'm not sure. When we get to this site, I think there's a stone marker there, but I might not have much room to park and talk there, so we'll see. Or maybe I'll talk a little bit on the way as we get there. So let's hop back in the Jeep and I'll talk to you along the way as I drive about Fort Lebanon. All right, let's get going. Yeah, so here's the parking lot I was just filming in. This is the parking lot for the Appalachian Trail. It's also on state game lands. So we're going to get on Route 183, and then we're going to head up to Route 895 and head towards the town of Auburn. And Fort Lebanon is was located just east of Auburn on what is today called Fort Lebanon Road. So as I said, I'll talk a little bit about Fort Lebanon on our way there, because I'm not sure how much room I'll have to park once we get there. Right, I'll catch up with you in a bit. And as you remember, there was a chain of these forts all along the Blue Mountain, and the last official one we did was Fort Northkill. Of course, we were at Fort Detrick Snyder up on top of the mountain, but if you'll remember, that was more of just a lookout station, not an actual commissioned fort. So Fort Lebanon is the next one in that chain. Like I said, it was later renamed Fort William. And one interesting thing is, from now on, these forts are located on the north side of the Blue Mountain. All the previous ones were on the south side. So we're now on the north side of the Blue Mountain. And Fort Lebanon, like I said, all these forts are kind of like, most of them are in a gap in the mountains, and Fort Lebanon is no different. It's built right near what's called the Schuylkill Gap. The Schuylkill River flows through it. The town of Port Clinton is located there. Yeah, and right down here is 895. Remember, these forts were only like 12 miles apart, so it's not too far to get from one to the other, especially if you're driving. Back then they had to walk, but 895. Headed to the town of Auburn. And like a lot of the other forts, this was built in 1755 as a result of the Penn's Creek Massacre, which is the first video I filmed. Some were built later in 1756, like Fort Franklin, the other one we're going to visit today. And this, like I said, Fort Lebanon was built by a Captain Morgan. So I'll get back to you once we get closer to the town of Auburn. Oh, I like to own that house there. Those old houses, they need a lot of work, but man, I don't know, I just like them. Alright, I'll get back with you. Alright, we're not in Auburn yet, but I'm going to quick throw up a map for you to show you where I'm headed. And of course, the location of Fort Lebanon will be circled for you. So I thought I'd go ahead and throw that up for you quick before we get into Auburn. Well, we are now in Auburn. Trees are blooming. So we just have to cross the river, the Schuylkill River, which flows through the Schuylkill Gap. And we'll turn onto Fort Lebanon Road. Going to the railroad. Yeah, right here's the river. Of course, you probably can't see it from the camera though. Oh yeah, right there's the modern historical marker. I don't know if you can see the blue sign in front of us, but right here is Fort Lebanon Road. So we're looking for the old stone historical marker. Those modern blue historical markers were placed on like more major highways for more a visual impact, whereas the original old stone markers are placed more at the original location to fort. I'll just take you with me as we look for it here. I'll check out old brick home. Yeah, I know, I like the old houses. Alright, just gotta keep my eyes open. So the marker should be on the right side of the road, and the fort was on the left side. Maybe you'll see it before I do. Regardless, it's a beautiful drive back here. Alright, I feel like it should be right up here somewhere. Oh yeah, right here it is. I see the big stone marker here. Right off to our side there. Alright, I'm just gonna quick pull right here. Yeah, so right here is the marker. My dash cam may have shut off right before I mentioned that we found it. I gotta reset the settings on the dash cam. Yeah, on this site stood Fort Lebanon, built in 1755 by Colonel Jacob Morgan for the protection of farm settlers against the Indians. Erected in 1913. So there's a spring right down there. But from what I read, the fort was actually located up in this area up here and up in the field on the north side of the road. They said there used to be a large oak tree up here and a spring up this way somewhere. But, you know, that was a long time ago. So right up in there, they said there's still like a bit of a depression up in the ground up there where the cellar hole was. And you know there's no houses built in there either. So Fort Lebanon stood right in there somewhere. Cool old stone marker here too. I get a picture of that. Yeah, and supposedly somewhere near here is several Indians were buried. The one site said just north of the bridge over here that crosses the creek, at least one Indian was buried. And this is one of the more major forts. You know, it seems like every other fort was bigger, and the ones in between were more just like little outpost forts. But this is one of the more major ones, Fort Lebanon. Nice quaint little spot. But I'm gonna get going. I'm parked in the middle of the road, and some of the neighbor folks here are starting to stare at me. So I'm gonna get going. Like I said, I'm not sure. My dash cam may have cut off before we found that stone marker in the Jeep. But anyway, we're gonna get going. We're gonna head to Hawk Mountain next. Yeah, so one of these houses off to our right might have an Indian buried in their yard somewhere. Because that's all it's over here is houses. But hey, any number of places could have that. You never know. You never know what's buried in your yard from times past. All right, so like I said, we're gonna head to Hawk Mountain next. I gotta get back on 895, and I got a story to tell you. It's another one of those unpleasant stories about one of the Indian raids. But there's a building there that we can check out that's kind of related to it. It has a cool story to it. It was part of one of my Haunted Pennsylvania videos. I did a series on that. It's what's called Schambachers Tavern. Alright, still headed east on 895. And we gotta look for Hawk Mountain Road on our right. I'll go ahead and throw up a map of where I'm headed to for you, because I know some of you like to keep track. Like I said, I filmed at this location before, Schambachers Tavern. Kind of it's got a real creepy story that's not associated with the French and Indian War. We might talk about that just a little bit again. But it is related to the time period that we're filming right now. Yep, there's a sign for Hawk Mountain Sanctuary. So we'll turn right up here. Of course, Hawk Mountain should be familiar to you. I have filmed here in the past. It's a beautiful, beautiful hike up there. A lookout where you can see the hawks migrating. But we're not here for the hawks today. Should mention too that this was another one of the areas that the Indians would use on their raids to come through this area. And one of those families was the Jacob and Gerhardt family, which is who we're going to talk about when we get to the location. We finally made it to the top here. And you can see the sign, Hawk Mountain Sanctuary. Because this is a visitor center, we don't want to stop here. I want to go down a little bit further too. There's another building down here. It's like the educational center. That's where I'm going to park. Building down here. Oh, and Schambacher's Tavern is that white house right up there. Actually, I don't think I think I'll park up in the other lot, not here. I don't think I'm actually allowed to park here. Oh, let me turn around. All right, so we made it here to the next location. So yeah, there's a parking lot up above that building down there. I forget what that building is called. It is some kind of educational center, but it's probably shut down right now because of you know what. So yeah, if you saw in the dash cam that the tavern is right down there. The tavern doesn't date to the French and Indian War. It's actually built in 1793, not too long after, but it is related to that time period. Now, it's related to the Jacob Gerhardt family, which I mentioned as we were driving. So I'm going to turn you around a bit. There is a trail that leads out that way. The tavern is a private residence, so I'm not going to walk right up to it and film in the windows and all that kind of stuff, but I'll be on the other side of the road, kind of showing it to you from just a little bit of a distance, just, you know, for privacy's sake, to the people that live there. And that tavern is supposedly haunted. I did a video on that some time ago. I forget what his name, first name was, but Schambacher. Matthias Schambacher. Like I said, I might tell you a little bit about that story again. It's really creepy. It involves eating people. So, and the weird thing is, when I filmed that video, I did get a headache when I was down here. It was the only time I got like some people said it was because the site is haunted, but anyway. Alright, I might talk about a few other things pertaining to this video series when I'm down there or when I'm up here. Just something I kind of want to mention. Alright, let me turn you around. So we're parked up there. Of course, down there is Hawk Mountain Road. The visitor center is way up that way. And then there's that building down there. But there's a nice little trail here. Has changed since I was here. I mean, I filmed here like 3 years ago, maybe? Or 2. I don't know, I lose track. Oh, that's right, there's this little spring here. Forgot about that. Alright. But we're actually gonna, well, I forget how long we follow this trail. This trail just kind of leads down to that building, but we need I think there was a trail that hooked off in the woods down here somewhere. There's like a little, across the road from the tavern, there's like a little structure, like a little shelter. Get down back behind the building and there's another little trail. This looks different too. It takes you out to a little bench out here. But we're going to keep going past the bench. You can see the tavern right down there. So right here's this little structure. It is a shelter. The Will Schulman shelter. Looks a lot like those Appalachian Trail shelters, but I mean, the Appalachian Trail does run, you know, several miles down the road is the Appalachian Trail, so I'm not quite sure what this one is here for. But our tavern is right across the road there, and you can't quite see it too well. I'll try to get you a better shot a little bit later from up the road. I forgot you can't really see it through the trees here. So while we're here at this location, I will tell you the story about this place. It is one of the quieter spots I filmed at today. So this is related to the Jacob Gerhardt family. His family, along with other families that lived down in the valley down here in more what's called Eckville today. They were victims of the French and Indian War, of these Indian raids, and then one of these massacres that occurred. And Jacob was just a boy at the time, and his whole family was killed in the typical way, I guess you could say, that happened in a lot of these massacres. You know, some of the settlers were just shot outright, some were scalped, some were burned in their homes. A lot of times the Indians set the homes and the barns on fire just to destroy them. But I think him and another, was it a sister, they hid under the bed. I forget how that went exactly. But they ran off. The sister didn't make it. But his whole family, his mom, his dad, his other siblings all perished in an attack. But he was able to run off. And I think he found refuge in a neighbor's house. But he was orphaned because of that time. But at some point, he went off somewhere else for a while. Look at a motorcycle coming up. All right, but later on in life, let the motorcycle go. Later on in life, he came back to this location and built this tavern in 1793. So this tavern was built by Jacob Gerhardt, and that's its relation to the French and Indian War. It wasn't built during that time, but it was built by a survivor of that time period. So that kind of links it to this time. And there was other families in this area too, besides the Gerhardt family that were killed. Because remember, I told you way back in the beginning, the first episode, over 100 people were killed during this time. It depends on which source you read. Some say 100, some more like 150 people. Of course, many were taken captive as well. So, some ways another typical story of that time period. And like I said before, I'm not going to share, if there's over 100 people killed, there's hundreds of stories you could tell from that time period. But a lot of them are kind of similar, so I'm not going to share every single one. But I do want to talk about that a little bit later, about the stories. Kind of ran into an issue with some people in the comments. So like I said, I'm going to head back up and get you a better shot of what the tavern looks like. I was here like 3 years ago, and I forgot that you can't actually see it too well from this location. It's right there, but if I go back up there and look down from the road, we'll get a view of it. Maybe I'll tell you a little bit more about it too. It's other creepier history. Yeah, so down there is a view of the building, the tavern. Cool old building, 1793. There's actually a lot of history there. A lot of haunted history. I'd love to have a tour inside there, but like I said, it is a private residence. So we'll let it go. So whether or not you believe in the haunted places or the paranormal, this place does have a history of that, regardless of what you believe. Whether you believe it's real or all fake. There's a lot of stories about that place. Yeah, in later years, after Jacob died, it was bought by the Schambacher family. And there's a lot of weird stories about them. Apparently some of the people, it was a tavern, so it was a place where people came to stay. And apparently some people never left. They were taken out to the barn, which was on the other side of the road where we were filming earlier, and they were, oh, how shall we say it delicately, they were turned into sausage and fed to other people that visited the tavern, as the story, so the story goes. But yeah, you can see why the place is considered to be haunted. And there's other stories from that place as well, but that's just the most interesting one. Schambacher's Tavern. Alright, as I just take a quick little seat here, I just want to talk to you a little bit about some business, some stuff dealing with this channel and this video series, and maybe some others, but just some things that kind of popped up. First of all, when I talk about like this in this series, when I talk about the massacres and the killings, I don't go into great detail about what happened. I think you can figure out what happened. You can look it online for yourself. I don't go into great detail about, you know what. If you're into that kind of stuff, you can read up yourself. I do try to keep this channel, PG, as I call it. I don't go into great depths about those things, and it's not in any way to justify actions from either side. I just like to keep things PG. I have students that watch these videos. I have families. I get messages from people thanking me that my channels they can sit down with their kids and watch these videos, because I just keep things, family friendly, shall we say. So that's why I know one guy got mad at me for not going into all the gore and stuff. I don't see the point to that. It happened, yeah, but I just kind of leave it out. I think you know what happens in those situations. And also, I'm not on here picking sides. I'm not anti-Indian or pro-Indian. That first video I did, the Penns Creek Massacre, was interesting. One guy just went off on me. The guy that got mad at me for not going into all the detail, I think I ended up blocking him, but he got mad at me saying that I was like all pro-Indian and trying to be politically correct and all that wonderful stuff. And I was like, okay, dude. And in the very same video, in the same comment section, someone claimed that I was being anti-Indian. So it's like the same video, but two totally different perspectives, extremes, both people attacking me. So it's like, I'm not doing either in these videos, but yet you got people from both sides attacking you. So I'm just want to throw that out there. These videos, that's why I don't go into some detail about those things, is just keeping things family friendly. And also, I'm not picking sides in these videos either. So those of you who, you know, call me out and that kind of stuff or whatever, there you go. It's just none of that's happening. So that's also why, you know, I do it the way I do it. So I just want to explain that. That's the way it is. So, and that's a very, 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 very small fraction of people doing that kind of stuff. But I just want to throw that out there. All right. So having said that, let's go to the next location. It is Fort Franklin. I'll talk a little bit about it right here, or maybe on the way there, because I'm not sure if I'll have a place to park. I might end up having to park on the road again. This is one of the lesser forts, if I can call it that. You know, like I said earlier, there's the major forts, and then there's always the forts in between that are more like just little outposts. And that was Fort Franklin. All right, so we're going to be on our way again. Like I said, we're going to head to Fort Franklin next. So I'm going to head back up Hawk Mountain Road to Route 895. And we're going to head all the way over to what's called Snyder's, the town of Snyder's, to where the junction of 895 and Route 309 is. So that's where we're headed. So I'll go ahead and throw a map up of where I'm headed. It's actually called Bullock Road is what we're turning on to then. Alright, so we are headed back down the mountain. Yeah, so I think I said earlier, you know, Fort Franklin is named after Ben Franklin himself. There are some forts up in that area. They're called the Franklin Forts. They were built on recommendation by Ben Franklin. In fact, one we're going to do later, Fort Allen, was actually overseen by him, designed. He was actually there. But the one that's actually named after him, Fort Franklin, was not visited by him or overseen by him. It's just named after him. And it was very hurriedly built. It's almost built as an afterthought. Fort Allen was the main one, and then they just decided to build Fort Franklin is between Fort Allen and the one we just visited, Fort Lebanon. Like I said, there's like the major forts, and then there was the in-between forts. And Fort Franklin was one of those in-between forts. Some accounts say that it was never really finished, and it was always kind of in a bit of disrepair. And several times it was kind of not even, it was somewhat abandoned during the war, until the settlers complained, and then they put soldiers there again. So this one does have a modern marker along the road. I'm not sure if there's going to be a stone marker for this one. We're going to do our best to get to the location. And we're going to get back on 895 and head east. There's actually a road named after Fort Franklin too. So I think there might be a little bit of discrepancy as to where the fort is located, because my sources don't put the fort on Fort Franklin Road itself. Yeah, this fort was built in February of 1756, a little bit later than some of the other ones. Yeah, all these Franklin forts were built just a little bit later. I should mention they were built in response to what's called the, I'm going to butcher this word, but the Natterhooten massacre. I kind of put it down at the bottom of the screen, however you want to say that. It was a big massacre occurred in that area, in what is now Lehighton or Weisport. And the Franklin forts were built in response to that. But I'm going to talk more about that in a future video. I'm kind of looking forward to that video. That'll be the next in this series. And another problem that Fort Franklin had was that it was built in a sparsely inhabited area. There wasn't much going on the north side of the mountain. Like I said earlier in the video, these forts that we're doing now were built on the north side, which tended to be not quite as settled as the south side of the mountain. So there wasn't a whole lot going on in this area back then. So that was another reason why it kind of got abandoned at times. But there was a fort on the south side that we're going to visit after this one, Fort Everett. It was not an officially commissioned fort, but it was used by the settlers. It's more like a blockhouse. Not much is known about it. There's a lot of differing stories about what it was, but we'll at least visit the location of that one. Alright, still another couple miles to the town of Snyder's and to the junction with 309. So I'll turn you off for a bit. And here is the junction with 309. Kind of went through the town of Snyder's and didn't even realize I went through it. Alright, so there should be a Bullock Road off to our right, but I think I'm going to take the next right, which is Blue Mountain Drive. Maybe not. This looks like Bullock Road up here. Just down from that intersection. Yep, Bullock Road. Oh, it looks like it's a dirt road too. Yeah, it's not paved. All right. All right, well, let's see what there is to see down here. Like I said, I don't remember reading about there being an actual one of those stone historical markers. I think there is a modern historical marker out on the main highway. Yeah, so up here is the intersection with the other roads. Alright, I'm going to pull off the road up here just a little bit and point up to where the fort was probably located. Okay, this is the way we just came. And just down this way is the intersection with Blue Mountain Drive, and this is Bullock Road. It then turns into Fort Franklin Road up that way. I do want to drive up that way, see if there's anything up that way, but for my research, Fort Franklin was up in that area somewhere. But it's all posted land, so we can't go up there. Alright, like I said, I am going to drive a little bit up Fort Franklin Road just to see. Yeah, so up here's that intersection, so I am going to go just a little ways up, because sometimes there are discrepancies as to where these forts were located. I'll let this bus go past. Alright. But I'm taking a lot of my information from a guy who traveled these ways back in the late 1800s to locate these fort locations. And I'll take his sources over anything that's kind of said today. You know, he was searching for these places a lot closer to that time period. But just in case there's a marker up here somewhere, because this is called Fort Franklin Road. Alright, so we have followed Fort Franklin Road all the way to the top of the mountain, to the top of the Blue Mountain. That mountain that I keep mentioning as, you know, the frontier line. Yeah, I didn't see any markers along that road, so I'm going to assume that I'm correct in saying that where I pointed out that location was where Fort Franklin was. No, probably because it wasn't one of the more major forts, they didn't put one of those older stone markers there. Or who knows, maybe there was one there at one time. Yeah, this is actually the parking lot for the Appalachian Trail up here on top of the mountain. I parked here before. This was here on one of my section hikes. I kind of like how my different videos tie together sometimes. You hear I'm doing French and Indian War, but this is also where I did Appalachian Trail videos. I'm trying to figure out which section this was. Anyway, yes, I was just trying to remember when I did this hike. Because I know I did one of these sections with my niece. It was like a long 15-mile section we did, but I think that was just over that way a little bit more. I think we ended at 309. from Hawk Mountain area. But anyway, I kind of like how my videos kind of tie in together. Here's the Appalachian Trail. We're also talking about the French and Indian War. But getting back to the French and Indian War, so I didn't see any markers on the way up Fort Franklin, so I'm pretty confident about that being the location of Fort Franklin. Yeah, and I didn't spend a lot of time down there either, just because once again I'm parked in the middle of the road. Always the best place to stop and film. So, and you know, there's really not much to see. It's all posted. Even if there was something there, I wouldn't be able to get up there anyway. All right, so we're gonna head to the next location called Fort Everett. Remember, it wasn't, I think I talked about this a little bit in the Jeep, it wasn't an actual commission fort, it was more like a blockade house, or some sources say that it was built next to a house and it was more like a fort. But anyway, it was built by the settlers as a house of refuge, a place for them to go during the Native American attacks. And supposedly there were soldiers garrisoned there several times, so it was used by the soldiers too, but it was not built as a commissioned fort by the colonial government. And it was built kind of in response. Remember, Fort Franklin was kind of abandoned several times and not really used that much, so they kind of needed a place on the south side of the mountain. Remember, Franklin's on the north side of the mountain, so we're going to head south to what's called Lynnport, and that's on the south side of the mountain. So they needed a place there for refuge and for defense. So that's what Fort Everett was. And there's not much written about it at all, so a lot of people are kind of guessing when it comes to research. But we're gonna head down there anyway, because that's kind of on the way home. I gotta go over the mountain and go that way anyway. So let's get to it. I think I'll just, instead of going back to 309, I'll just take this route back down to the south side of the mountain. Let's do that. All right, so we'll stop at one other place. Once again, I'll probably just stop there quickly because I'll be stopping in the middle of the road again to film it. All right, let's get back in the Jeep. All right, so here we go, down the south side of the mountain. I have been up this way before, because like I said, when I did that section hike, I came up this way. And I think I can get, there's a road called Fort Everett Road, and I think I can get to it from this back way somehow. We'll see. We'll just make an adventure of it. When I ride my bike up this hill. Doesn't look so bad now, but it gets worse. Yeah, I have a great view down the valley down here, but probably not so much on the camera. Alright, we are presented with a choice. So I think we're going to go to the right, although the left is paved. As I mentioned, we won't be able to actually see anything of Fort Everett. I'm just going to have to park on the road again. That's the way it is with some of these forts. Some of them, like Fort Dietrich Snyder, Fort Hunter, Fort Halifax, we could actually walk to the location where the fort was, even though there's still nothing to see. But like Fort Dietrich Snyder, there was at least a cellar hole, and they knew the location of Fort Halifax. And then there's other ones like on this video where we can't even get to the site itself because it's all posted private property. But in some of the upcoming videos, we will once again be able to be at the actual site where the fort was. I know that in the next series, when we do Fort Allen, we'll be able to see that. There's actually a well. It's called Franklin's Well. It's actually still there, surprisingly. Alright, just keep my eyes open. I think the road I'm looking for does connect back here somewhere, but anyway, I'm familiar with the area, so I'll be okay. Alright, so out of the woods, off the mountain, back into the PA farmland. I should note too that in talking about Fort Franklin, at one point the soldiers there were told to vacate the fort and head to a location on the south side of the mountain. and many people believe that that south side location was Fort Everett, is what they were being told to go to. It can't be proved, but because this side of the mountain, the south side, is where the settlers were. As we had pointed out, the north side, where Fort Franklin was sparsely inhabited at that time, at least that area on the north side. I just love driving along these roads, though. Alright, so I had to turn around, circle back where that split in the road was up on the mountain. Yeah, here's 143. I should have turned left and gone that way. Kinda had the map turn around backwards in my mind. But it's all good. So Lynnport is just up this way. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw the map up of where I'm supposed to be going. Alright, so we're coming up on the village of Lynnport. There is a historical marker on the road, one of those modern blue ones. I'll have to see if I can find a place to pull over. As someone pulls out in front of me, thank you. Yeah, it's just outside of town here. Oh yeah, there's the sign. Right off to the side there. So I'm going to pull in somewhere around here. Here is the Lynn Township building. Yeah, this should work. Public parking. Alright, so this is the Lynn Township, I guess, municipal building. Right out there is Route 143. This right here is Fort Everett Rhodes. I want to see if I can get that historical marker out there first without getting run over. Yeah, so here's the modern historical marker. Fort Everett, a blockhouse erected about 1756, just about 300 feet north of here. Place of refuge and defense against the raids in the French and Indian War days. Troops here guarded the area just south of the Blue Mountain. Yeah, so out that way was the sign we just read. And up in here, up in this field somewhere, was the location of Fort Everett. Like I said, not a whole lot is known about it, but you know, somewhere out there. And this is Fort Everett Road, and we were just up on top of the mountain there. So that'll be it for another video in this series. So once again, thanks for coming along with me as I just kind of drive around, explore. It's kind of fun. At least for me it is. I know a lot of you like it too, but so yeah, I'm gonna head home. Not sure what I'm gonna do tonight. Maybe just watch other people's videos. But yeah, I am looking forward to the next video where we talk more about the Franklin forts and the Notterhooten massacre, and you can see Franklin's well. So, all right. Once again, thanks for coming along, and I'll see you around.